Ladies and gentlemen, this video is going to be a little bit different. I'm not going to be going over any things on the board today. I'm not going to be showing you any games or anything, but I'm going to be talking more about theoretical plans and ideas and tips that can really make you a stronger chess player, especially if you are trying to achieve that. You're trying to get a high rating. So I hope you enjoy. We're going to be going through 10 tips today to really amp up and strengthen your play and just yeah, whatever rating you're at. I'm sure all of you can benefit from these. So number one is mastering the opening principles, not just the lines of an opening. So for example, um, you don't want to just memorize things. You want to just have the theory of an opening down. So for example, when you play something like e4, d4, you know that those openings, or more specifically, those moves themselves, are there to control the center. And then obviously everybody knows you want to develop knights before bishops. You want to castle early and avoid any queen moves or flank attacks without full development. So after you've developed all your pieces, then you can go on attack. But first, you really want to get down the you want to get through full development. Okay, and the reason this point matters. Point number one is because masters, you know, grandmasters in chess know what openings work, right? And they don't just know what moves to play, they know what openings work. Okay, so um they know why it works, I should say. Rather, they know why an opening works, not just what moves to play. Okay. Point number two is always think before you move. Okay, so this is just a, you know, many people have said this before, just always think before you move, and ask yourself after you make a move or before you make a move, what changes in this position, and what are my opponent's threats, and what is my opponent's reaction, or what can they play as a reaction to this move. So a good idea to have when you're trying to work on this point is have at least like two or three moves in mind that you want to play, and then try to figure out, you're not going to get all the time, but just try to figure out what moves your opponents can play. Okay. um All right. And of course, the reason behind this point number two, and I'll give you a little why it matters after each of these points. Why point number two matters is because strong players do not rush to make a move. They calculate and they scan the threats for every move. Okay, so they don't just rush in and play a move because it looks good. They always just calculate the threats before they make the move. All right. Point number three. We're going to be going through these pretty quick. I don't want to take up too much time. Point number three is develop a deep tactical vision. Now, what does this mean? This means you want to work on practicing your tactics. You want to, all kinds of tactics. There are many, not just pins and forks and stuff. Uh, these are the most classic ones, but practicing spotted forks, pin skewers, and discovered attacks daily. So you want to daily um, work on puzzles of specifically tactics. Okay, so these will definitely strengthen your, the way you play, and you can definitely get some benefit from doing that. And also just use puzzles, like I said, use puzzles to sharpen your speed and pattern recognition as well. And that's mostly what puzzles are for, is for increasing your strength to, of pattern recognition. That's really all that chess is. It's pattern recognition. You notice a pattern from you know from a prior game, and you remember what someone did from it. Just, it's recognizing the game, recognizing the certain position. And that's why puzzles can be so helpful, is because you might even spot that specific position in one of your puzzles and then in a later game. So that's one thing that can really help you. And then why point number three matters, developing a deep tactical vision matters, is because when you're, at that threshold of 2000 and plus, tactics are still the number one reason why games are won or lost. Okay, let me repeat that again. At 2000 and plus elo, tactics are still the number one reason games are won or lost. That should really motivate you to really just get as much out of. Again, you don't have to do this just on chess.com. They have great tactics, lessons, and puzzles, but you can find this in books. I mean, you can go get 1001 puzzles or whatever that's called, and you can find there are books and videos and all kinds of things. I mean, I don't know. Check your newspaper next time. I don't know if people even get those. I don't know. Just you don't have to just do it in chess.com. They have great resources for it, but it is not the only resource out there. Books are still a thing too. They're still around as far as I know. Okay. Tip number 4 is knowing your basic endgames in and out. Now, what does this mean? This means you want to refine your skills in recognizing known like endgames. Okay, so an example could be king versus king and pawn, where some variations of that endgame can be draws and some can be a win for the player who has a pawn. Another reason for this is opposition and triangulation. You really want to just hone in on your skills of recognizing endgames. Okay, from puzzles, lessons, things like that, and then implement them in your games. You want to try to remember those in your games, and then look for known positions like the Philidor position in a rook endgame. And why this point matters, why knowing your basic endgames in and out, is because chess masters do not hope. They do not hope for an endgame that favors them. They know what wins, they know what draws, and they know what loses for them. And most of the time, they do not want to play for a loss, so they know what wins or draws. So yeah, just keep these in mind. Not, you're not gonna. This is gonna take a long time if you really put if you really want to get these down. It's gonna take a long time to, especially all 10 of these. It's gonna take a long time to really get these down, in and out and stuff like that. But yeah, just especially just maybe just having them in mind whenever you're playing is just yeah, having them in mind, and just so you can remember them. And again, resources are out there probably for looking at for end games memorization and recognizing end games. You can always just go over your game history, but again, yeah, just also lessons. You can do lessons on chess.com as well for end games, and those are some great resources you can do as well. Tip number 5 is stop trading just to trade. Stop trading just for the sake of trading pieces, because why would you do that? Why would you just trade because there's opportunity? Okay, so ask yourself, whenever you have the opportunity to trade a piece, ask yourself, what do I gain or lose from this exchange? What do I gain or lose by trading these pieces? Okay, and then consider imbalance as well. So consider a bishop pair over two knights. Consider who would have a better pawn structure if you traded. And then also consider open files and space. Who has better space if we trade these pieces? Always keep these in mind. I would say this is one of, if not the most important tips I'm going to be sharing in this video. So definitely you want to keep this in mind whenever you're playing. And this is one of the easier points to take advantage of in your own games, because you will always have in every single game you have, I can almost guarantee that you will have the opportunity to trade pieces. Okay, so this is a very important point to get down, is stop trading just to trade. Always ask yourself, what do I gain or lose by making this trade? Again, consider imbalances, bishop pairs, and pieces. Who has the better pawn structure after this trade? Open files and space. Okay, all those 5 things are important when you ask yourself all of those things when you're making a trade. why this point matters, why point number 5 about stop trading just to trade matters, is strong players trade only when it helps them plan, excuse me, only when it helps their plan or worsens yours. Okay? They don't trade just to, just so there's less pieces on the board. They always have an idea behind it, and it's always either to help the position or worsen their opponent. Okay. Tip number 6. Think in plans, not just in moves. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean, um, good players, not just average players, good players. I'm talking like, you know, master level and above, maybe even like maybe just like 1800 and above, which I'm not even in that category, but I still ask myself this is well, it's not really a question, it's more like a statement, is good players don't just say to themselves, I'm going to play a move like, let's say in this case, knight to c6. I'm not going to just play knight to c6. They're going to say, I'm going to pressure this piece, okay? Again, this is kind of a little bit more intuitive, I would say a little bit more complicated, but you want to take advantage of plans like minority attacks, grabbing space, capturing space is very important. Controlling files and pawn breaks. Pawn breaks are one of like a little bit more theoretical things, but they're very important if you want to get better at chess. You really have to keep in mind when you're playing. You have to really, you know, just make a note of the pawn structure. Again, this kind of goes back to the last one about pawn structure, but in this case, it's pawn breaks. Pawn breaks are, when you make a pawn move, and the opponent has the opportunity to trade pawns and thus open up the center, and they do. They open the center, and you need to know what to do in those positions. Okay. And then why point number 6 matters about thinking plans, not just moves, is because planning shows you're seeing the whole board, not just the next move. Okay. And masters have got this down. They can think up to, I don't know what some of them do, 20, 30 moves, probably 20 to 30 moves ahead. Some of them who are really good. All right, let's move on. Tip number 7 is master positional concepts. Okay. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean, um, again, this is almost like going back a little bit to tactics, but not like quite there. So in this case, it would be monitoring outposts. So good squares that you can place a piece on that have nice control of the center, or open squares, and they won't be easily attacked. Outposts, weak squares. Okay, so you take advantage of the weak squares with your pieces, preferably like a long range piece like a bishop, queen, rook. Good and bad bishops. So if I make a certain pawn move, in some cases, will my dark squared bishop be blocked? Will my light squared bishop be blocked? What will happen there? And also backwards pawns. Backwards pawns, of course, are if you have a chain of pawns. The backwards pawn, if say you have like a V, that's not a V. Say you have a V of pawns. So like pawns, pawns, pawns. There's always one right here in the middle. There's always one at the bottom of the chain. That's the backwards pawn. That's the most vulnerable pawn. So always you know, keep track of if you have any backwards pawns, if your opponent does, and always make sure you have sufficient support for that. You have sufficient defense for those, especially that pawn, because that's the most vulnerable. Because if that one goes down, then the other ones are very vulnerable indeed. And then also ask yourself, where are the permanent advantages for me or my opponent? Okay, and this almost goes back to the earlier point, which is kind of the second point, I should say, the thinking before you move. How does this move change the game for me or my opponent? Does this give me an advantage? Does it give my opponent an advantage? What happens here? Keep that in mind. And also why this point matters is because tactics are important, but also positional understanding creates lasting pressure. Let me repeat that again. Tactics are important, but positional understanding creates lasting pressure. And if you can master positional understanding, So the correct positioning of certain pieces in certain pieces in certain positions, you will have a much easier time getting this point down and getting higher rated. All right, getting stronger at this game. Okay, we got 3 more to go. Number 8 is play actively, not just safely. I see this all the time. People, especially when they're low rated, I'm not trying to pick on you, but they don't want to take risks. They just want to play safe, you know. Um, I have nothing against playing safe, but when you have the opportunity to, in some cases, sacrifice a piece to gain the piece back and gain initiative, don't do not do not hesitate to do that. That's what I'm looking for. Do not hesitate to do that. Okay? And also put your pieces on strong active squares. Okay? Fight for the initiative. Avoid passive defenses unless they are forced, unless you are forced to move to a passive square. And why this matters is master level players, I'm talking 2000 and above, they know that being active is often better than being solid. Okay. Again, there's people, I mean, who I play with at my chess club over the board, who I can easily point to them when I'm talking about this, because there's certain people who they play solid in some games, but other times they just go out on all out attacks and they do not care about their own structure. They don't care about their pawns or anything. They just go on. Those are aggressive players, and you need to watch out for them. But also take note of how they play. Okay, you can really learn some things from players like that. So just keep that in mind. Very important point as well. Play actively, not just safely. Point number 9: review your games. Review your games, and especially review your losses. Now, why does this matter? Because some people would be thinking, oh, why wouldn't I want to review my win? Why wouldn't I want to review that great or brilliant move I did? Yes, that's fine. You can. I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm just saying losses will tell you your moves. They'll tell you bad moves. Obviously, if you lost, they'll tell you bad moves that you and your opponent made. But also, they will tell you, and this is really cool about software, is they will give you the exact moves that you should have done. Okay, and that's just something people did not have like 50 years ago. They didn't have Stockfish and all these evaluation bars and stuff. They didn't have this, but now we have it. And I see people who they don't really take full advantage of that, you know? And you really should be doing that. You really should be reviewing your games, especially your losses, because they will tell you with very high accuracy what you should have done. Okay, and for some people that might feel, degrading that a computer has to tell you what you should have done when you're, a human and it's a bot and all that stuff. But I'm just saying, they're just better at chess than us. We just have to admit that, you know. I don't know when it's gonna be that we're better than them. Probably never. Maybe, I don't know. Most likely it will be never. Most likely they will always be better at it than us. But who knows? I don't know. But in this case, they're better by far than us. So we should really just take advantage of these bots being, these bots helping us, and it literally integrated into the chessboard. So we should really take advantage of that. So ask yourself when you review your games, where did I lose control of the game? If it's a game you lost, which again, you should analyze the games you lost. Was it the opening? Was it tactics? Was it time pressure? Time pressure is a big one, or was it something else? Okay, so ask yourself that, and also use a mix of your own analysis. So your own thinking, your own recollection of the game, and also use the engine suggestions. And then also why this matters is masters, again, 1900 and above, they grow fast by learning from mistakes. Okay? Sorry. They grow fast by learning from mistakes, then not repeating them. Let me repeat that. Masters grow fast by learning from mistakes, then not repeating them. Okay, so they learn from mistakes and then they do not repeat them. That's what that means. Okay. Sorry if that was a little confusing. And then the final point is stay calm under pressure. This is the last point, but it is very much needed to be heard. I'm glad this was the last one because a lot of people suffer from time pressure and things like that. Yeah, so do not panic after a mistake, okay? So I see people, they're playing, 1-0 bullet game, 1-1 bullet game, and they're like, okay, I just blundered a piece. Okay, maybe it's even worse. Maybe it's a longer game. And no. This really just this really works with just faster games. Let's say it's like a bullet game and you lose a piece and you're like, okay, I quit. I'm never playing this game again. I hate this game. I'm never playing again. And you quit and you never play again. You don't do that. No. Just because you lose one game doesn't mean you are that doesn't qualify you for being for somehow you're gonna lose every game. Okay, one game is just one game. Okay, so do not panic after a mistake and look for counterplay. Especially, again, great example. Just today, again, this is a little different. Blitz game over the board, but I was in a completely losing position. I was down more than a piece, and my opponent made a mistake, and I won. Not because, you know, also, we were under time pressure. Okay, so I did use that as well. But taking advantage of opponents' mistakes, and I say this in my own videos, I think every once in a while, is taking advantage of your opponent's mistakes is very important and sufficient. No, not sufficient, but wise use of the time. So that's the second sub point here is use your clock wisely. Avoid getting into time scrambles because you're just going to be doing any move possible to gain time. You don't want to do that. You do not want to avoid time trouble, and you do not want to rush in a winning position because that is how you go from winning to lost. Okay? Please do not do that. And why this final point matters is because emotional control and time management are the final leap to mastery. Okay, so what this means is just kind of self-evident. Taking control of your own personal chess emotions in the game, whether it be stress or whether it be anything, and also time management. Sufficient use of the time and also wise use of the time is the final leap to mastery. Okay, so I hope this video was useful to you. I hope you gained something out of here. Maybe you were helped by, one of the first points, whether it be the mastering opening principles or later on with thinking in plans, not just moves. Or maybe it was that last point of staying calm under pressure. Whatever it may be, I hope you all enjoyed. Thank you all for the support on the channel. I appreciate that. And I hope these helped you. I hope I gave you 10 points today. It was a lot, but I hope you all enjoyed. That's it. You can subscribe here. Check out this video here. YouTube thinks you like this one. May your mates be on the chessboard. And I'll see you all in the next video. See ya.